Welcome to this Cambridge Marketing College webinar. My name is Neil Wilkins, and today we're going to talk about SEO, GEO, alternatively called AIO, artificial intelligence optimization, or even AIO, answer engine optimization. There's a whole host of terms that we can use for the search visibility challenges that we have as marketers and business professionals here in 2026. The essence of what we're going to be covering in this session is really how to stay visible to both human searchers, those that we've been hopefully focusing on over the recent years, but also now the emerging AI-driven discovery tools. In other words, things like ChatGPT, Google Gemini, Claude's Anthropic, and things like Grok, for example. So there are a number of different elements that we need to explore here in this session. And I'm going to cover how classic SEO, in the traditional sense of search engine optimization, and now AI search will actually work together. So the practical goal really in essence today is going to be really quite simple. How do you make your content easy to crawl, easy to understand by both humans and AI agents, easy to trust, and also easy to cite? The quotations that are coming through, the answers that are being created by AI agents as they present them back to their humans, is a new way of approaching the whole essence of search in 2026. Now, I've got a little thing for you here, a little kind of gift, I guess you could say, which is a thing that you can access from the QR code on the screen that you might like to scan with your phone. Most of us are going to be using a desktop computer, I'm guessing, for this particular webinar. So if you have a mobile available, do scan that code. It's a little gift for you, which is a little SEO, GEO, and search visibility app. It's a little app that gives you a lot more detail, a lot more how to do the things that we're going to be covering here in this session. And we're going to be covering two kind of levels, if you like, within the app, but also I'm going to try and cover these off in the talk today. Level one is very much beginner. So if you're new to this stuff, new to SEO, you're going to need some really clear, hopefully jargon-free explanations of how search visibility works right now. But if you are already a practitioner, so you're already doing SEO, one of the key things that you're going to need to focus on is how to strategically refresh what you do so that you can appeal to AI agents as well as the humans that you've been serving. So I'm hoping that that little QR code link through to the app is going to be helpful to you. Now, the good news, and there's a lot of challenges here, but the good news really is that good search engine optimization in the traditional sense is still the base layer for everything going forward. It is still the kind of the fundamental foundation for everything that is good about search. So GEO, generative engine and AI visibility, so this idea of AI agents searching your content, is really understood best by just thinking about doing SEO even better. So giving clearer answers in your content and your copy, showing and demonstrating stronger expertise in everything that you talk about, having a cleaner structure and a more disciplined approach to the kinds of content that you're publishing. So if you want to win competitively in the search engine stakes here in 2026, you shouldn't be chasing any kind of tricks or kind of the latest sort of trends that you see in social to, oh, you can win this SEO traffic by doing this, this, and this. The brands that are going to win will be focusing on content that is just easy to find, easy to trust, and easy to cite. Okay, so I'm kind of giving you, it's a bit of a spoiler alert, really, because I'm giving you the answers to what to focus on at the start. And then we'll reverse engineer back and actually figure out, well, what does that actually mean practically in what I have to do here in 2026 to be appealing to both human and AI searchers? Well, first of all, let's just kind of define this because I've been throwing a few little acronyms at you here. So SEO, search engine optimization, still the foundation. It is still just about being found as a human searches for the kinds of content, information, storytelling, education, products, services, and brand stuff that you publish. Okay, so the foundation is still how easy is your content to crawl, to index, how relevant is it to that search, and its kind of worthiness, I guess you could say, to be clicked. Okay, so it's all those fundamental principles of are you publishing valuable content with authority around a topic or a number of topics that will bring value to your human audience? That's still the big question. That's still our big focus. GEO, so generative engine optimization. So that's kind of basically any kind of AI search. So that's a human possibly then triggering a search in ChatGPT, and that search then delivers a search outcome or a set of answers to the query. And we'll go into kind of what those things might look like and might mean. But basically, the idea here is that what you're looking to do is to make yourself very, very good to do business with when it comes to those agents, because they are not searching as though they're a human. They're searching to give answers back to their human. That is what they're doing. So we're looking at generative answers, not just a list of clickable links in a search engine sort of table, if you like, in the typical kind of Google sense. They're coming back with a much more conversational answer or set of answers for their human. So Google is saying, and it's clear, its position is really clear on this one, is that the same SEO practices still apply to AI. And Bing now is giving site owners some specific AI citation reporting. So if you're looking to use other kind of search criteria here, we need to look beyond Google. We do. I mean, it isn't obviously now the complete go-to for a lot of people who are searching. So if you're thinking about treating AI search as a kind of a separate entity, then the good news is it is very much an extension of good SEO right now. So that's the good news, is that if you're doing stuff well at the moment, it's about extending it and making it even more applicable. It's not about reinventing anything. It's just about doing the good stuff even better. Okay, so if you're new to this is about thinking around your content as being searchable by, in effect, robots and humans, and they have a different set of criteria that they're landing on your content with. So search visibility has changed. I mean, it has. If you look at your Google Analytics, you will see that you are already on your website getting search coming through. If you look at the sources of inbound traffic to your website, some of it will be human in the traditional Google sense. You'll see Google there, you'll see social media, all those typical human focused elements will be coming through. But you'll also start to see things like ChatGPT coming through as a source. Okay, so Google is now including AI overviews and AI mode in the search that it does. So if you're using a Google search, for example, it will be triggering Google Gemini to go out and actually continue to create answers for you rather than just give you a list of links to then follow. So that whole thing about I have to get onto page one of Google, which has been, for decades, the big, big challenge with SEO, that's now gone. That is not what we're focusing on here. What we're focusing on here is finding content that we can create for on our websites, on our web pages, in our blogs and articles that is so relevant to the audience and the agents, the AI agents that are coming through, that your audiences will then be kind of almost wowed and impressed by the depth, by the quality, by the relevance of what they see. And if both the human and the robot, so the human and the AI, is having that same impression, then you will be appearing in the answers that they create for their humans. So AI search in some ways does kind of behave a little differently. Again, you'll see that in the app that I gave you the link to at the start here. I mean, Google says that AI overviews, so when you look at a Google search now and you see that overview at the top before you see any of the links below, Google Gemini, basically what it's doing in there is it's saying it's helping the humans really to get the gist of complex topics faster. That's kind of really what it's designed to do. So it's designed to give you that overview for the kind of the challenge that you might have put into search. Maybe you're looking for a specific product or service, and it'll give you the context around what is possible as an answer. And then you can go deeper. So AI mode is then deeper in terms of a deeper exploration, deeper reasoning, and deeper comparisons. So that is really where AI search is behaving a little bit more different to the traditional kind of search, where it was, I put a question in, or it's not even a question, I put some keywords in that I hope is going to give me an answer, and then back that answer comes to me. That's not really what we're looking at here. What we're looking at here is very much a conversational kind of Q&A style answer focused approach to search engine optimization. So it's subtly changing here, and that's what we're going to be focusing on as we go deeper into this topic. But there is a search theory that still really matters. This one has always mattered, and it really, really matters now. And this is a concept called information foraging theory. I go deeper into this in the app itself, but there's a lovely kind of little example in there which kind of tells you everything you need to know, really. I mean, if you imagine you're kind of on a desert island and you're kind of looking for food, would you go up to a bush looking for berries where that bush was looking kind of just like a sort of a burnt out sort of, bunch of sticks and things, where it was all very, very bare? You could see the branches and the twigs, but there weren't really many healthy looking leaves? Or would you look at a bush that was flourishing? It had lots of leaves, maybe some flowers on it. Which one would you go for to find your berries? Well, you'd clearly go for the one that looks more healthy. And this is this idea of information scent. So in practice, somebody coming to your website is going to be looking for clear titles, clear headings, snippets, summaries, and importantly, visible relevance cues. This is information scent. I mean, I always call this kind of, that the hook. So what is that thing that gives you that initial impression? Now, that is still very, very important. Better search experiences from a human perspective will increase the speed at which you lose somebody if you don't do it right, but actually then draw somebody deep into the experience if you get it right. Now, the key here is to understand that AI search is actually still looking for these same things. Yes, it might be visible clues, but it possibly is more contextual clues in the words that are being shared. But we want to be basically encouraging both humans and AIs to come and land on our pages and actually get a solid kind of, full kind of foraging theory related experience. So what they're looking for is this lovely balanced and nuanced approach to the quality of the information you're presenting. So if you're only paying lip service to the quality of the content you're writing and publishing, this is the time to step up. We're going to talk about some examples in a short while, but the really important rule here is that it's about quality. It's about textual clarity. It's about really, in lots of ways, trustworthy signals. You have got to look almost sort of, top drawer. You've got to look premium, no matter what product or service you're putting out there, because the AI agents will spot it very, very quickly. In the blink of an eye, they will make a contextual view of what they're seeing, much as we do subconsciously as humans. These same principles still apply. So there's no kind of special optimization to be done here to appeal to an AI agent. As long as you are top drawer, really top quality, there's some authority, there's some trustworthiness signals, then you are going to be in the game. Because, of course, if you're not in the game, you've lost already. Nobody is going to be leading through into your customer journey. Nobody's going to be buying your products and services because they'll abandon. They're gone because they know they can get this stuff elsewhere. And so do the AI agents. And of course, they'll do it in the blink of an eye, speed of light. This stuff is not taking long to do. So it's vitally important that the quality of the content begins from the very first time you think about what are we going to publish next. And a key thing that comes into that decision is the technical eligibility, if you like. To appear as a supporting link in Google AI features, a page has got to be indexed and eligible to show in Google search with a snippet. So basically what Google's recommending us to do is to ensure that important content is available in text, not as overlays on images, not as captions or things like that, but available in easy to reference text. We do also need to be making sure that the internal links are strong. This is something, it's kind of really old school, this one, where we kind of even from the name internet, it was this sort of interconnected network of links. That was where internet kind of first grew up. I'm old enough to remember that back in the day was, the very first basic principle of SEO. But a lot of us have forgotten that now. Internal linking within your website to related content is all about technical eligibility. Does this article, does this page, does this blog relate to other things on this site? And are they linking internally to it? Are those links clear? The AI is looking for it, as is the human. So what we're trying to do here is build up this kind of almost sort of little ecosystem around a particular topic or set of topics. That's an important thing to remember. I'm going to come on to this idea of thought leadership. If there are particular topics that you want to own, either as an individual or as a brand or because of a particular product or service, and you can storytell around them, those are technically eligible topics or thought leadership content themes, if you like, that can ripple all the way across your website. If you don't identify as, a particular sort of thought leadership topic on your site, the big question is, from an AI agent perspective, what is this site? What does it stand for? What is it about? And if it is just selling me a bunch of not topics, but products and services, then the AI agent's going to look and say, no value here, and it's going to move on. Much more, but probably more exaggerated than a human would. So it's really important. And there's also a little bit of kind of technical stuff that goes sort of behind this when we say about it is about the content, not about captions and kind of hiding content on imagery. It's the real basics here. We also need to check behind the scenes as well. So for those of you who are new to this, again, check the app because it goes a lot more deeply into the whole idea of sort of, these kind of almost sort of technical features that you can plug into your content behind the scenes. So if you've got access to your website, you can make sure that some of these terminologies and some of these kind of little tools that are behind your pages are actually enabling fully crawlable and indexable pages that you're publishing. So you need to kind of look behind for things like robots.txt, no index, if there are any kind of login walls that are kind of blocking content, etc., etc. The app will explain a lot more of that. This isn't a sort of a how-to guide here today. We're looking at a bigger picture here. But if you want to go deeper into that, click on, obviously, the features within the app to help you with that. And the idea really is that what we're trying to do here is balance that authority, balance that kind of technical credibility across our website and across all of our content, and as well as some of those technical features that we have to make sure mean that our content is accessible technically. So it's almost like the engines and the agents are allowed in through the back door. Once all of those things are created, then our kind of rule set is to build content for people first, because we need to really start thinking about these AI agents coming through to our web content almost as though we were considering them as kind of semi-humans. Okay, so this is kind of hybrid search in lots of ways. I mean, Google's ranking systems currently, as far as we know, prioritize helpful, reliable, people-first content, not content made to primarily manipulate rankings. And this is going to apply to everything that you do. So if you are focused on originality, completeness, giving some real insight into that thought leadership topic I mentioned before, enabling trust. So we've got to see some credentials and stuff in there as well. Then those are going to be signs that this content is worth bookmarking, sharing, and recommending. Those are the assessment questions that Google comes into, for example. So Google Gemini search is coming in, looking for those signs, those triggers that no matter what is being said by the content, it's giving me, as the agent, as the search bot, as the human, it's giving me the confidence that I've actually landed in the right place. And that is going to be really, really critical. Is this content, is this feeling, is this value going to be genuinely useful to me? That is what the agent and the human is thinking. So our role here is to make sure if we're building for valuable content, sorry, building valuable content that is very much driven by people first, then the AI agents are going to be picking this up clearly. Now, there's a useful little acronym which is EEAT. You might know this one if you're an experienced SEO practitioner. And this is now our operating standard. Okay, so these are four things that we need to be thinking about when we're creating this human-centric content. Experience. The creator has direct first-hand experience of the topic. That's the feeling we need to leave, both for the agent and the human. This is an experienced creator. This person who's published this content or this brand kind of author has actually got first-hand experience. It's a key one, isn't it? You've got to own this stuff. You've got to be accountable for what you're publishing. Second E is expertise. The creator knows the subject well. And this is where we're going to be looking at really kind of building this thought leadership. I've got a spoiler alert there. The answer to everything is thought leadership. But if you're doing this consistently around a series of topics that strategically are important to you, then clearly you're going to come across as somebody who knows the subject well. Doesn't mean you have to kind of research and come up with all the original ideas for this content. Content curation, where you're adding value over other people's content, as long as obviously you review it and declare that it's not yours, that is still valuable because you know the content and the subject well. The A in EEAT is authoritativeness, if I can say that word. That's a big word to say, where the creator or site is recognized as a credible source. Now, of course, this is where you've got things like reviews, you've got stuff going on here where you've got probably comments and engagement, where your credentials or where your qualifications and any certifications around this topic that is your thought leadership topic. This is what search is all about. This is what obviously is going to be a human experience when people land there, but it's also going to be important for the agents. They're looking for this stuff too. So that's key. And then the T is for trustworthiness. The content needs to be accurate, reliable, and transparent. So there's a real kind of responsibility here for making sure that the content is, absolutely top drawer. It's got a real depth and credibility to it, but it's reliable and it's accurate. So putting things in here, again, because it's thought leadership, putting things in here that enable you to be storytelling with evidence. Evidence is everything. Data is everything. You've got to be able to back up what you're saying and claiming, of course, but putting reference sources in as well, where you might have referred to, a third party, or you might have taken some research and built a strategy or some implications around that. All those kinds of things are absolutely key. That is what we're looking for here. And Google says and recommends, when you look at its research and the way that it kind of trains people in SEO, making clear who created the content. So an author, actually give an author name. And again, the search engines love this. Who was it produced by? How was it produced? And why it exists? So actually give it some real kind of clear credentials. So author pages are helpful, sourcing, some kind of expertise signals. All of these things will strengthen the trust that the agent or the human arriving on that page will have in that piece of content. So we're not looking at any kind of clever tricks here. We're just creating responsible content, something that's really, really valuable. And Google's guidance also says very specifically that content should demonstrate first-hand expertise and a satisfying experience for the reader. That's their words, not mine. A satisfying experience for the reader. In other words, you're going to take them on a journey. You're going to give them some value. You're going to probably introduce some kind of level of, wow, I wasn't expecting that, or I didn't know that before. That kind of level of intrigue, but solving problems. And then this satisfaction bit that Google's after, and again, read across to the agents as well, is that you give them a clear call to action. In other words, having experienced this content, where do I go next? Where's the button to find out more? Where's the button to go deeper or to inquire or to become part of this community or to engage with the author? All of that stuff is really, really critical. And what we're finding here, then, actually, if you pull all these things together, all these little strands so far, is that we're looking at originality. It matters more in AI search because what the AI agents are coming through for and referencing your material, if it appears in the answers they present back to their humans, is they're looking for unique, non-commodity content. So if you're just copying and pasting what others are doing, if you're just reinventing the content that you've always produced, this is going to fall flat. If it falls flat, it's not going to adhere to all the things that we're talking about here, which are the things that matter. So it doesn't mean you have to be super innovative and super original at everything you do, but these content themes, this thought leadership, where you're building and building and building on a core theme or some real strong bedrock or foundations, that's what we're talking about here with originality. Constantly adding a little bit more value each and every time you step forward. That is what is going on here. And we're looking to really kind of write for question depth rather than just purely keyword volume. Okay, so we've got a little bit of a tutorial moment going on here because Google specifically, and I've got a little video to share with you in just a second, which will kind of share with you what Google really means by this, because we need to get a little bit practical for a moment. Google's saying that users in AI search will be asking longer, more specific questions and then follow up questions. So, when I said earlier about this being a conversation rather than, oh, pop this into the search bar, get a couple of links and just follow through those links. AI search no longer works like that. It's a different kind of conversational, deeper kind of almost sort of intrigue. It's a search, it's an exploration that hopefully will present your content and information as part of those answers. So ChatGPT search, for example, rewrites broad prompts into targeted searches. You just got to watch it as it's searching on your behalf. Just spend a little bit of time watching how it's thinking, how it's interpreting what it's finding, and you'll find it adjusts and it kind of evaluates from what it sees. And so this means as marketers, we've got to build content around real customer questions, comparisons, what Google calls edge cases, decision criteria, and not only short head terms, which is the opposite to long tail phrases. And I'm going to share with you in just a second what these terms mean, because this is the gold dust. This is kind of where the real value lies in this whole idea of SEO and GEO right now. So I've got a little visual for you here. This was created and sort of output by Notebook LM as a bit of a summary of that kind of that slide, because I wanted to go deeper in as I was creating this webinar, deeper into what is Google, because Google is still the main player. We all know that in this game as all this area evolves. I thought, well, what did they actually suggest? How do they interpret what we're talking about here? So when they say short head terms, what do they mean, as in Google? And of course, with Notebook LM, part of the Google family, you're getting almost a behind the scenes interpretation of kind of some of these terms. And inside these terms, we get a hint of how the Google algorithm is working. So when we say short head terms, we're not looking now at broad, high volume terms, this kind of vague search intent. We're going to things that are much more intentional, specific word combinations that reflect the actual search expressions that the target audience uses, and then moving to something that's a lot more niche, these kind of things that are called edge cases, where they're highly specific kind of terms, which shows really strong and clear intention from the user or from the searcher. And again, this is how AI agents are working. They want to give the very best answers, the most nuanced answers to their humans. So they're not going to be bothered by these high level kind of vague search terms. They're going deeper as fast as they possibly can. So I'm just going to play you a little video that actually came through from Notebook LM, which gives you a kind of a context of these three kind of search terms and how they're going to play out in the way that we now need to write for question depth and almost kind of forget about this whole idea of keyword volume. This stuff is quite powerful, so just have a listen.
We're starting to get more specific now. This is where we can actually start to see what the user is trying to accomplish. So, next up, we have phrases. These are the specific combinations of words that people are actually typing or saying into a search bar. We've moved beyond a single fuzzy concept and into the territory of a real question or a defined need. The jump in clarity here is just massive. We're not just talking about ceramics anymore. Now, the search is for best ceramic vessels for interior designers. Instantly, we know who we're talking to and the exact problem they're trying to solve. And this is precisely why these phrases are so crucial. When you start to target them, you stop guessing. You're finally speaking your audience's language, which means you can give them exactly what they're looking for. Okay, now we get to my favorite part. We're moving from the common to the uncommon, into what our source material calls the hidden gold of search. This is where things get really interesting. These are edge cases. We're talking about those niche, highly specific searches that are phrased in natural, conversational language. Think about how you'd ask a question to an AI assistant. That's the language of edge cases, and it's becoming more and more important every day. I mean, just look at the level of detail on these. This isn't just a search anymore, it's practically a conversation. What kind of vase works in a Japandi hotel reception with warm lighting isn't a keyword, it's a specific problem that needs an expert answer. Now, look, the search volume for any one of these is going to be tiny, but when you add them all up, they represent a huge group of users who have crystal clear intent. These people know exactly what they want, and that often makes them way easier to connect with. This table lays it all out perfectly. You've got your shorthead terms at the top, high volume but vague intent, great for just getting your brand name out there. Then you have phrases, medium volume, specific intent, perfect for answering a direct need. And then you have edge cases, low volume but incredibly clear intent, which leads to really high quality engagement. Okay, so we've got these three buckets. How do we actually turn this into a real world winning strategy? Well, the key thing to remember is that it's not about choosing one over the others. The most powerful strategy actually balances all three. You need the broad reach of those short head terms for visibility, you need the relevance of phrases to meet specific needs, and you absolutely need the deep connection from edge cases to win in this new world of AI search. Here's a great mental model to follow. Imagine a user. They start out really broad, just typing AI marketing. Then they get more specific with a phrase, AI marketing strategy for small business. And finally, they dial it all the way in with that hyper specific edge case that truly gets to the heart of their unique problem. And let's end on this powerful quote from the source. That final step, that very specific edge case, that is often where the gold lives. It's where you can provide massive value and build a real lasting connection. So there you have it. You've got the framework. The only question left is, what are those specific, nuanced edge case questions that your audience is asking? Because that right there is where you're going to find your gold.
So that is what we are being told from Google. That's straight, literally straight from the horse's mouth. What Google thinks we should be focusing on. So there's a very clear theme here. This whole idea of accountability, taking responsibility, highest quality content that has authority, that can be trusted around the topics of thought leadership. That theme is going to be absolutely key as we go forward with this. And there's also kind of some other things which have always been, well, I say always, but certainly over the last sort of 10, 15 years or so, have been important for search. And one of those things for a number of us, if we have, some sort of geography within our business offering, is local visibility. That still wins in these high intent searches. So if you have a venue, a shop, some kind of physical presence where you need to have a geographic element to the search that you have. People searching for local or service-led brands, local SEO is still one of the clearest bridges between kind of classic, if you like, discovery and then this agent-driven discovery. So do continue to do that in terms of your SEO because it still will enable your kind of humans and agents who are searching on their behalf to actually find you. Another thing which is coming through loud and clear is the concept of freshness. Now, signals actually still matter significantly. All of the search platforms have always rated and given benefit, if you like, or extra points to fresh content. Now, that doesn't mean that you have to be constantly updating every single thing on your website, but actually ensuring that content that you publish is updated if that is relevant. So, updated or publishing material that has, I guess, some sort of time bound nature to it, where you're bringing new information into play, where you're maybe adding internal links, which again cross reference other newer material that you've published on your site. So, not just kind of leaving content that you've put into your blogs or into your articles, into, sort of any kind of community that you have on your website, leaving that and just think, oh, I've published that, it's now done, it's gone. But actually going back over content. And for many of us, it is going to be a lot of pages, a lot of content. But the value that that brings to the overarching credibility that your website has when, as we've said, the agents come through and in a moment will actually then critique what you're doing, it is absolutely vital. So go back and actually add content, add features, add links, and add kind of comments to the original content that you have. Freshness signals absolutely matter. And you can now start to kind of really begin to think about this from the customer perspective. I mean, as marketers, we are trained and always have been to take the customer's view, take the customer's perspective. So we can now measure visibility in the tools that now matter. So, I would be suggesting to you is kind of be your customer, search as though your customer, pretend that you are the customer using the AI agent to go off and find the kinds of information that you're looking to serve to them. Kind of really step into their shoes, view the content that you're publishing through the lens of the agent, the AI agent that is acting on behalf of your target customer. And when you do that, you start to think, well, hold on a minute, Neil, isn't there another thing going on here? Because isn't the persona then of the AI agent almost as important as the persona of the human that's sitting behind them? That's an interesting one, isn't it? Are you actually now targeting the human customer who's ultimately going to make the decision as to whether or not to engage with you? And or are you targeting the persona of the agent? How has that agent been created, designed? How do they actually critique what it is you're doing? Because if you don't apply the marketing principles to those AI agents and actually treat them as a target persona, well, if your human is using that agent to discover you, you're never going to be found. So the human sitting behind that search is never going to be aware of you. So there's a very interesting and quite profound thing happening here. We now have potentially a series of gatekeepers to you and your customer. And those gatekeepers are AI agents being set free into the world to find and discover you. So sometimes the human might discover you because they're doing a direct search themselves, but most often and increasingly so, those humans are going to be sitting between, or the agent's going to be sitting between you and that human. So it might start to shift some of our key performance indicators, some of our KPIs. So maybe we move away from just clicks alone to the quality of the visibility. This is an interesting one now. Is our content visible and relevant to both human and AI agent? And rather than just measuring and putting in place, oh, we have this number of clicks through to the website and this number of pages, were kind of referenced here. And, this particular new article, well, that got X number of clicks on it. And rather than those kinds of parameters, maybe we now start to focus really on how, and this is a little bit more subjective, how the search visibility is being reported within our businesses, within our marketing dashboards. Are we consciously focusing on how visible our content is, how our content is actually serving thought leadership topics to our audiences of both agents and humans? Or are we just still focused on the old traditional clicks, of the old traditional how many page views, how much dwell time? Because, of course, dwell time to an AI agent is irrelevant. They're not going to be spending more than a nanosecond on your site. So if you're looking at the wrong KPIs, maybe you're getting the wrong indicators coming back into your business. The app that I shared at the beginning is going to give you a lot more thinking behind that. But it's a fascinating question, isn't it? It's a fundamental question to answer. Are we now monitoring the right things, or do we have to think about some different stuff? And do we actually even then have to build a different content operations model that actually then focuses as much on AI search as human search in the old way? Google's how, who, and why framework is often used operationally, where it defines authorship, document process, explains the purpose of the content, because Google says that readers may benefit from understanding how automation or AI was used and when that would be reasonably expected as part of, content creation in an article or maybe a blog. This stuff is really important. So if you are co-creating content with ChatGPT or with Copilot, now is the time to actually declare it, because you will not only be transparent to the humans who maybe are interested in that, some will, some won't be, some don't care as long as they get value, but an increasing number of people are going to be saying and thinking, was this created by AI? Oh, I can see some signs. Do I like that or not? And is that the intention that you want to be giving? Is that the kind of brand position you want to be giving? Maybe it already is better still to actually be open and upfront when you're using co-creating. So maybe when you put this authorship in to, who this content was written by, not just the brand and the business name, but actually who in the business wrote this content, maybe you start saying co-authored with ChatGPT. And you can obviously replace that with whatever you're using. But maybe now is the time to start rethinking how we do this, because we're seeing agents actually potentially coming through and thinking, oh, this was created by ChatGPT. Well, I'm a GPT agent. That's good news. I can only see it going in that direction. You only have to fact check a piece of information with another AI, and it will pick apart if you tell it it was created by a different AI platform. It will try and find problems in that content. So, they are already becoming quite competitive as AI agents. So maybe we're going to be building friendships and building this kind of credibility by playing the game in many, many ways. So I see this kind of really starting to change both how we create content, but also how we present that content to be appropriate for both human and AI search. And there are some common mistakes. We're getting close to the kind of the business end of things now here in terms of this talk, because some of the common mistakes that are currently hurting rather this search visibility is publishing large volumes of search first content on a load of topics without a clear site focus. In other words, not going down that really clear focused path of what do I stand for? What are my thought leadership topics? Taking that step back and thinking, I can be talking about my brand or my products or my services. And yes, I want to sell those things, but what is the bigger purpose here? What is the bigger value that I'm bringing to the world as my brand, as my company, as my set of people here who are working on this content? If you start to talk around those things, you won't fall into that hole. Search first content that is just trying to get, attention desperately is like that bush without the berries on it. It's kind of just not going to get attention and hooked people in. Second point is using extensive automation without adding value, evidence, or expertise. For that one, I would say the biggest problem here is that because it is so easy to do, using AI generated content without editing it, without co-creating the value that comes in the final draft and just publishing it. There are so many signals now. There are some 30 signals of AI created content that you need to be really addressing in your content if you're using AI. I'm not saying don't use AI to help you on that hybrid journey of producing great content. I would encourage you to do so. There's a great reason for it. It's well researched, it can be beautifully choreographed, but it is also about you being a co-author. Updating dates without substantially changing the content. That freshness thing, people think, oh, well, okay, if I just change a date there or just change the image on the front cover, that'll be fine. That means it's now fresh data. Come on, I think we know by now from everything that we've seen and heard here in this session now, the latest kind of thinking is the AIs can see through that instantly. So make sure when you update the content to make it fresh, it's a substantial change. You've substantially added value to the content that you've created there. And the final point there was really this whole idea of ignoring headings, structure, the transparency of the sources, and these refresh cycles on pages that are already indexed. So some of the pages that have already gone back, but are yet to appear in this new kind of world that we're crafting and creating here. So I'd like you to kind of just reflect just for a minute is, are you making any of these mistakes? Are some of these mistakes likely to be present somewhere in the existing content kind of strategy that you have? Because if they are, these are the first places to start. Then you can go back and start thinking about that authority, that credibility, the new content that you're going to be producing. But starting here, where some of the existing content might be some quick wins, if you try and address this stuff, that could be a great place to begin. And so, how would you kind of take this forward? Well, what is a natural kind of next series of steps? Well, I've got this kind of 30-day SEO plus GEO plan that I would recommend for you. So, if you want to kind of begin here, you don't have to do it in this order, but to me, this kind of order really sort of speaks well to kind of getting some quick wins and then building stuff kind of strategically. So, this coming week, I would suggest audit your indexability, the crawler access, the structured data, and your sitemap health. Go into your website, go and look at some of the ways that your kind of site settings are and the criteria that you have set up to make sure that that front door is open to the agents and to the search crawlers. Because if it isn't, and this is possibly one of the reasons why you're not seeing a huge amount of AI traffic, for example, is because it's not, the front door isn't open. I was working on a site earlier this week, and it was fascinating because my client who I was working with, they said, we're creating this lovely content. You've told us to do thought leadership, and yet we're getting virtually no traffic. And I went into the back end, and it was actually telling the search engines to go away. It was saying this is not accessible for search. The button was pressed, do not access this information. I was like, no, seriously, you've actually closed the door. This is unbeknown to the client. So as soon as we went in there, the next day we actually saw some traffic. It's not big, but it's a start. So do that on week one. Week two is identifying, I would suggest, your 10 highest value pages and go in with the app and go in with some of these tips that we've been talking about and start to think about where you can improve the heading structure. Think about how you can get some of these answer first openings at the beginning of the content. Maybe that's the update that you do on these older pages. Maybe you go in and you think, okay, we're going to leave most of the content there, but I'm going to create some content that is very much about answering questions as a kind of an introduction or an exec summary at the start of this page or this article. Also about FAQs. FAQs are just gold dust again. These are really, really helpful to keep that traction because, of course, they are a lot of the time what the agent or the human is looking for. And then adding as well source evidence. If you weren't just creating this content, uniquely and innovatively yourself, and you've actually used some sources to build the story, then add those stories in. Adding references in with links out can be a really solid way in that week two of starting to get some real traction. In week three, I would suggest updating product, local, and business profile data wherever it's relevant. So go back and look into some of the stock pages, because of course in week two we're looking more at what we call flow pages. So those that can change over time, they're a little bit nuanced and potentially quite time bound. Articles and blogs, for example. In week three, we're looking at stock pages, pages that are a little bit more static on your site. So update some of those critical informations and maybe resubmit some key URLs if that is appropriate as well. So you start to kind of rename pages to just bring that freshness back to your site. And then on week four, it's about going in and taking the perspective of the agents that you want to attract. Maybe build a persona of the agent that you want to bring to the site and view it from their perspective. Could be ChatGPT, could be Claude, it could be, any other kind of agent platform that you're going to be looking to use. And then prioritize the next refresh round. Actually go through this and make this into a repeating and habit based kind of tactical plan. So that in week five, you start to go back in again and start to get better and better and better. So my reflective question to you here is, where would you start? If I told you could only start on one page, which page would you begin at? Probably is going to be one of your article pages or a blog page. That is the one that's probably going to be the freshest and the one that's most obvious to update, but you might have a different answer. And that will hopefully then help you to get a practical kind of leapfrogging over the competition who are still using the old SEO principles. So for those of you who didn't manage to grab the app, there it is. There's the link to it, so you can scan the little QR code there and follow your way through. And again, lots more information, lots more detail than I could cover in 50 minutes there in the app. So hopefully that'll be really useful for you. But the fundamental principles here, really, and everything that we've kind of talked about, as I've said to you, to think about your thought leadership topics. What are the things you want to be identifiable as? Because the agents are looking for that as much as the humans are. And then your products and services then underpin those kinds of positions and that purpose. So the good SEO that's always been there is still the base layer. So if you've got a really good performing site, now is the time to put those afterburners on. But if you're new to this stuff, it's about getting in and seeing where you're at right now. That is absolutely key. And GEO, generative engine optimization, and AI, or answer engine optimization, and visibility are best understood with these kind of simple little checklists here. Clearer answers, stronger expertise that you're really kind of putting out there, a cleaner structure, making it in this kind of order of play that we've been talking about here. Better measurement, really. So checking those KPIs. Are we measuring and have we got the right kind of indicators in place to show how we're now operating and performing? And a more disciplined publishing approach. So, of course, having that persona of the agent as well as the human in mind is going to be one of those tricks. So, your site, hopefully, if you follow all these kind of instructions and use the app to go deeper, is going to be the one. And you are going to be the brand whose content is absolutely the easiest to crawl, easiest to trust, easiest to compare, and easiest to cite. And particularly for those agents who are crying out for high quality content that they can put into a solid answer with a link to you that they can then feed back to their human, because that is what we're focusing on now. The game just got tough, but hopefully with these answers and some of these action plans, we can start to really take the lead, if you like, in this new world of SEO and GEO. So I wish you every success. I hope you found that useful. Please do go and play with that app. Go deeper into some of the topics that we've been talking about here in this session today. And I wish you every success. Hopefully you will be sort of loud and clear in the minds and the eyes and the visibility of everyone you want to be targeting here in 2026. Wish you the very best of luck.